So what made you choose Life Changing Writing?
Well, interestingly, I have always wanted to explore my writing, but I just have never had the focus or the confidence, I guess, to really do it. I know so many great writers, including yourself, so I've always felt like that's just not my lane. It's just not my thing. Um, but and then when I learned about your course, and I was just thinking about your course as, oh yeah, Mercy is doing a course. This is perfect for her. This is great. I'm, looking forward to her success. And then one day it just dawned on me, wait a minute, this sounds like the perfect thing for me. The more I read it, not as a friend, like the course description and, all that kind of stuff, the more I read it as a potential client, I realized it was something that could probably benefit me actually.
And I remember that you said it was one particular post that I put up that actually helped make things click for you. And it was when I showed a picture of my writing space and how imperfect it was. That I'm writing at a chest, I'm using a ball for my chair, and then I even put up a few pages of a manuscript from my book, and it was about imperfect writing as well. So having an imperfect space, imperfect writing, and then that none of that matters, because what's important is that we're trying to turn the faucet on or get the thoughts to flow.
Yeah. It was a
Do you remember that?
I do. And it was a really important moment where I realized that I was making a lot of excuses for myself, and that after, making excuses, and then that becoming fears, like, oh, if I don't have things right now, a writing space or a routine, or I don't know, just the things that are external to the process, very personal and internal, right? I just was able to just quickly let it go after seeing your posts. Your posts were perfect. Your advertisements were perfect, in that you tapped into people's vulnerabilities, right? And you made yourself vulnerable by showing, how these things, everyone has these things, but here's how we move past things that we think are limitations, right? And
right.
step into our process. Yeah, so I felt, okay, I got an exercise ball, I got a, a little chair somewhere.
So silly. And then what was your experience like in the group? Because coming in, we meet over video and phone. Nobody knew each other. So how was it for you at first coming in, knowing already that you're coming in, having to give yourself a pep talk? Okay, I've signed up for this course. I'm going to take this leap. And now I'm going to interact with these people that I don't even know. So how was that?
It was exactly like that. Like, I was like, dang, I really, this, because I'm not an online person much, right? Like I am on social media, and I lurk, as one of my friends calls it. Like, I look and see what's going on with people or news, but I'm not like really into being or using it as a professional platform. And so, or academic platform.
Right.
And that's just old school, I guess. So that this course taking place mostly through like being online with one another during the workshop times, and then also it being all those people, it did put me off a little bit. I got really excited about joining the course, and then when it came time to get closer, and you started communicating with all of us, I started feeling really vulnerable. I started feeling really uncertain if I wanted to expose myself to other people, uncertain, and just unsure and not confident. Like I felt like I'm not a writer. I don't have anything to say. I don't have anything to contribute to this group. And I don't want to be like someone who brings the group down. Like, all of those insecurities were part of my process.
Right.
Yeah.
So at what point in the process of being with the group members did you realize, like, this is safe, this is okay, I can do this?
In the very first time we met, it was your
Mm-hmm.
guidance and your, facilitation set a tone of
Mm-hmm.
of calm, and it's all okay. I also realized that you are very particular in terms of curating your group, right? Like, you're not just bringing together. So there's all that, behind the scenes work already happening in terms of how a group comes, right? So that was obvious.
Right.
And so from the first day,
Okay.
the participants, there was no threat. There was no sense of like competition. There was no sense of like a misfit. It wasn't a misfit. It was a good fit, and I was
Right.
pleased with that. Very
Right.
pleased with it. And I liked how,
I'm
wasn't,
glad you brought,
oh, go ahead.
no, you go, you go.
I liked how you started us off on the phone with each other versus video, because video can
Mm-hmm.
be very distracting. And when we were just doing the audio calls in the beginning, it really helped us to just be able to close our eyes and just really tune into ourselves and tune into other people's work without looking.
Mm-hmm.
It was really a great sensory tactic, I felt.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm glad that you brought up about the idea of competition and feeling like, oh, am I going to bring the group down? Because some of the other members also brought that up to me even in the interview. Well, I'm not a writer, but I'm just going to go ahead and see what this is about. So little did you know, because you don't know the other members, that some of them were also feeling the same way.
See?
And yeah, so that's wonderful. And that that idea that I'm particular about curating the group, which is true, which is why we have our intake call, the perfect fit call. And I feel that those who do feel it is a perfect fit for them will then be a perfect fit for
Right.
each other in the group,
Yeah.
support each other. How did your writing change? What changed in your writing? Because I have to say this, knowing you, right? We always tell stories together, like verbally, we're always like adding on to each other's ideas and thoughts. And I feel like you're a natural storyteller. But like a lot of people that my program targets, there's a gap between this verbal storyteller and then being able to translate it onto the page. But yet you said when you've shared your writing with everybody who you've talked with before, who's known you, who've always said you should write, they're amazed at how much you've written, right? So let's talk about that. How people's reaction to how much you've written and even your own reaction and,
Yeah.
at that and how much you've produced.
So I have written a lot, more than I ever imagined I would. It's just always had been so difficult to get more than a sentence on a page. I would become frustrated for one reason or another and, just stop writing. And so definitely some specific skills that I picked up during your course, or just ideas like understandings, right, were very instrumental in helping me to turn on the faucet, like the term we discussed in your course, right? It doesn't have to be a full flow all the time. Sometimes just a drip, just making sure it's open, right? And so I think that one of the things that was really, really helpful was the things that you insisted upon in terms of us not being, not critiquing ourselves. And help me remember, I want to say these things right. There were some things that you insisted that we not be like self-critics, right? That we're not writing to go back and criticize our own writing.
Right. Hold on. Okay. We're back.
Okay.
All right. So Yeah, so you were talking about the skills that you picked up that helped you to actually
Yeah, so
become
not
abundant in your writing.
right. So just telling the story, right? And not feeling like understanding that as a novice, as a beginner, if you will, or someone who is not trained in writing but has stories to tell and wants to utilize writing for many different reasons. That I'm not in the editing process when I start writing these things down, that I'm in the writing process. It's such a difference. And
Right.
one of the main roadblocks is that I sit down and I write a sentence and then I immediately critique it for, this for better words or better description, or there's not enough of this, or it doesn't explain that, as opposed to just allowing myself to just write it down and then not even go back, just keep writing, just keep writing, because nothing that I have started writing so far is done and ready for editing. It's just not where we are. So just that idea, I mean, it sounds simple probably to many people, but for me, it just really clicked in your course. Something that certainly I have heard, but the way in which you guided us through the process, it just clicked. So that was one of the main awarenesses.
So that's also interesting, because you say that it's something that you've heard before. And remember, before the course, you told me you tried, I don't know if it was an app or something, where they give you prompts every day and you tried to write to that. You said you got really frustrated.
Oh my God.
With that. Do you remember?
I do. I do remember. It was it was challenging, right? It was almost like it reminded me of just like, as a teacher, it reminded me of like not understanding what a child needs and continuing to pressure them to do something in a way that it just causes more frustration and more anxiety,
Right.
Ability
so that's awesome.
to help us to bring us to an understanding, right? To bring us to an understanding. And I can't speak for the participants, but I think you did that for them too. And even in a way that wasn't the same as you did it for me, in this differentiated way, which are the skills of education.
Right.
So,
right.
So I
and
have
then,
comfortable writing like a story that I've been writing. I've become very comfortable doing quick journaling and writing thoughts down so I don't forget things, and anywhere, anytime. Those are things that I was never doing before.
And do you care to share anything about the project that you've been working on, the story that you've been writing, in any aspect? You don't have to share the content if you don't want to, but even just how meaningful it is, how important and precious it is for you. And like you said, you've been wanting to write this story for decades.
A story that I have I've told, so many different times in different ways to different people. It's just my story, and it's my story that starts before I even arrived, right? It's the story of my family and their unique makeup cultural makeup of my family. And it's been quite a process to get down on, what I thought I wanted to write and what it turned into, and being okay with the changes. And you've coached me through a lot of that, because part of the group coaching, there's the group coaching, but then you spend a lot of time with me one-on-one, helping me to see things differently, so that not my story, but just sort of the structure around my story and the way I'm thinking about my story and the narrate, just like all of that has helped me get things down in a way that I never would have without the coaching that you've given me, in terms of help me think about the restrictions I was putting on myself, right? With this story, I thought it had to be a specific, telling it like this forever. And even as I learned new things that kind of changed what I thought I knew, or you helped me understand that that doesn't mean that I tear up the pages and throw the story away. It means I get to use voice in a way that's authentic and just tells the story. It's just telling, so that's been really exciting to just be in process with it. It's like a living experience. And so I'm working on it, and I could see how at many points I would have just stopped, but I've been able to keep going, and it's making it more interesting and exciting. Yep.
And what can you share some of the reactions that people have had when you shared your story with them? Like you shared with your son, Orion, you shared with your friends, some of your friends there on the East Coast.
I was sharing it with a friend, and I was like, okay, I'll read you a little bit. And then I read a little bit, and she was like, keep going. And I was like, okay. So I read a little bit more. She was like, keep going. And I was like, how did she know I have more? Like, I ended up reading it all to her. And it was, it ended up, I was like, wow, I have written a lot. And it just felt good that it was exciting. Even this person who's heard the story forever, it was exciting for her to hear how I had written it, how I was writing it. And that just, I was really self-conscious about it, especially for someone who knows me well and knows this story. And, anyway, so that was good. And then I shared with Narayan, and he was so shocked by how much I had written. But the story, it was almost like he had never heard this story, or he wasn't part of this family, right? It was almost like this was all. And he was like, wait, stop, go back and read. And then he would ask me questions. He was like so enthralled. And he said that, he really, and then he had some specific, Narayan is quite the scholar. He had some specific ideas and thoughts and compliments. And it was really, it felt good to interact with it. Cause for the course, and you've been like my safe space, right? But to kind of, I see how people write stuff even after it's been published. Who knows who's reading it? But when you got to go to a reading and read it out loud and listen to people's feedback live, that's just tremendous, right? So, but it definitely feels good. It felt really good. And sharing in the group, was a good like training wheels element, right? Right? I don't think I would have felt comfortable reading out loud, even to my closest friends, if I hadn't had the practice, because that was like, we're reading today. Today we're reading, or you would ask people to share, but everybody always shared because everybody felt very comfortable doing it. And the everyone in the workshop was really supportive, but they were also willing to ask questions and get clarifications. And it was just such a beautiful balance. So, which is something that you for sure. Yeah.
Right, because we work on feedback is actually a component of the course, on how to ask for feedback and how to give feedback, right? So that people feel healthy and strong in their writing. Yeah. So who would you recommend for this course? And what kind of writer? Or what kind of person?
I would recommend anyone who. Why are you laughing? Anyone.
Maybe there's a delay, but you.
Oh, okay. I recommend anyone who.
Hold on. Wait, pause. Reason. Okay, so who would you recommend?
I would recommend this course to anyone who has stories to tell, and they want to begin to write them down and document them for themselves, for their families, for their children, for publishing purposes, anything like that. People who have not had formal training in writing.
Mm-hmm.
The course is titled very appropriately Life-Changing Writing, because writing is such an outlet. You know, it's such a way to let go of things that you've been holding on to, repressing, bottling up thoughts, you know, and it's very therapeutic. So even for that reason, or for the other sort of end of publishing, right? It is a course for anyone who does not think they have, you know, the time, resources, understanding, skills to begin to document their stories.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And,
Well, I don't know. Any other last words?
I would also say, sorry, I would also say for any people who do have experience writing, need a fresh experience from an intuitive and accomplished coach like yourself, right? The way you work with people is it's a very special technique and strategy that helps people really tap into themselves, feel confident and feel comfortable, and get some things down on the page that probably you never would. Seriously, probably that you never would under your coaching, for sure. So anyone who's writing and maybe they've reached a place where they need some new inspiration, this is definitely going to give them that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So I was actually thinking today, because we're both Pisces, moving very intuitively in the world, as are, other people, but specifically we talk about that a lot, being Pisces and being so sensitive.
Yeah.
But with anything that anyone has an internal gift for, they move with it, but then you're not always able to articulate how you do what you do, or codify it, or like that. And so I was thinking today, like, how do I actually explain to people what it is that I'm doing? Because I'm not teaching grammar. I'm not teaching you about foreshadowing. I'm not teaching you, those kind of techniques that people think of, specifically how to do dialogue. Although we do come up with organic ways for that, I don't reach out and say, oh, this is the technique for dialogue. This is the technique for that, the technique for that. But yet we still manage to get all those things done, right?
We do.
So I think in your video, so in your...
I think that has a lot to do with your training as an educator and the sort of pedagogy that you've been trained. It's it's constructivist, and it's a way in which you say, here's an individual, here's where they are, here's how I'm going to meet them right where they are and help them move forward, right, from where they are, and then through that process, you're organically discovering, things that make sense at that time. It's the right time to discuss dialogue or foreshadowing or whatever.
Yes.
Right. So, and that's how you've approached this. So it's
true. That's a good point. In addition to just naturally being an intuitive person, as a teacher, that intuition has been honed. As a teacher, I've had to hone that intuition and really learn how to apply it constructively to get people to reach their goals. And
and you would think, I mean, honestly, there were only a few people in the course at the time. Well, a handful of people, but it felt like you got like one-on-one attention almost always. Like you paid so much attention to each person's writing. It's like you were able to remember everything. I talk about your memory, but even like in that moment, you're able to remember everything says, everything everybody writes, and then to be able to turn around and give them immediate feedback or suggestions, or asking critical questions to help them think deeper in a direction that you think would be helpful for them to go. So you don't give people answers. You ask these really wonderful questions that make people create their own understanding. Yeah.
I
This is
think that's a good ending point. Thank
wonderful.
you, Sandhya.
Mwah.
Mwah. Appreciate it.
Okay, so
And
that's it.
thank you for the video from India. It was beautiful. That's
Huh?
it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.